So, thank you. Like any typical compliance guy, I'm in between your evening fun, right? So, I will try to keep it very light for the next exciting session. So, this topic might be a lot of words. It's pretty straightforward how AI could help cybersecurity and how cybersecurity and other compliance practices can help us to proceed with innovation. So there were a couple of panels happened earlier. It's all about innovation. I think it was hosted by Meera, and then there's a lot of panel members. They spoke about innovation. So I'm asking a straightforward question: how many of you get at least a greenfield experience in your company, so that you will have a free hand? Not really. It's like our relatives asking very frequently, what is your next step? Right? So the cyber and the compliance team always chases you. Have you patched? Is your firewalls right? Do you have all the gating in place? Like how my mother-in-law used to always ask multiple questions. So that's how the posture is. So we will try to see why do we have those set of practices, why it is essential, and how we can swiftly move and deliver a better innovated products. So as I said, most of you here don't like governance teams because we are always in between a lot of your innovation, but there is a need for it. So maybe at the end of the session, there will be a quick question, whether do you really think they are the guardians or the antagonist, or really they are still funny guys. So we'll answer it at the last. So I'm just going to pull this one. So my brother-in-law is from Kottarakara. He always used to take me to a Puttu Kadai, so where he talks about how perfection plays a vital role so that you can take it out from that vessel and you really have that edible eating. So it's all about similar. So he used to explain it like a rocket launch. So, but there is a need behind it. Why the teams really chase you is all about three key things. It's not to make you to fear. So if you put in inadvertently any personal information, you would be fined pretty much. And if you are operating, and I think Ramesh was saying that different geographies, every geography has a pretty hefty fines if you violate any of these norms. And lastly, anything related to cyber, the policy and the government law says that you have to report within 6 hours. Typically, it is much faster you have to do it than an SBI lunch hour. So that's where we are based. So this is one of the examples which happened very recently in AIMS, where a ransomware compromised a lot of data. So before getting into it, I think Murali asked me if I could touch base on a question that was asked by one of the delegate here. So we all know about how you send an input and then the output comes out of it. What happens in the middle layer? How can we really see what happens in between? So I think the answer for it is you can do an activation probing. It's in straightforward, like when you use your calculators. When you don't believe it, especially in the college, the scientific calculators, you can open the panel and still you can punch it and see what happens. So you can use the technique called activation probing. In between, really it would help what you do with it much better than eval, which always comes at the last. So I'm going to quickly cover these three things. What security and AI can do it. It's a famous term of Abraham Lincoln, right? So you need a security to first protect your innovation when you do it through an AI, right? That is the first one. You put in your filters and prompts. Second one is, right, to safeguard your assets, you need an security which is complemented by an AI. Last is how do you protect it with all the threats you have. So that's what I'm going to cover, a fabric. So this is a fabric. Again, NASCOM asked me to put a disclaimer. None of these things are being said by them. It is predominantly with my experience. So what I've tried it, I've put in all the use cases here. So I will quickly try to cover 6 things. First is, I think here most of you, I think almost everyone would use code generators as your co-pilots. and I really don't know how many of you had a chance to really check it. So that's where the big challenge comes in. Anyone used here a SNCC? Any idea? A SNCC? So it helps you to put gating. You copy codes from these AI tools. There is always a vulnerability to have an injected code into it. The gating really helps. Your pipelines are well secured, so you guys can try it. The second one is a telemetry. So this is again the input one, and mostly the output one. Telemetry helps you to put all the traces. That's much beyond than your cloud watches. It helps you to do a lineage between what happened at the start and how it came out. And then the third important thing is there any data stewards here? I won't ask any question. Is there any data stewards? Okay. So how it could help you is to put in the labels, because the UX, DPA, all are asking the assets that you furnish has to be furnished, whether you use AI for decision making. If you're using it for any fundamental rights or highly sensitive information, you have to disclose it. So that's a mandatory that could help you. And then the RAG is a pretty vivarious concept now. Everyone uses it to train it. It has a high number of vulnerability. Your RAG pipelines could be handled very well with this AI supported. So think about it. You do a prompt, and then how many of you validated your prompt is it's completely out of malicious code? So did anyone here have validated the prompts before you put it into your system? Anyone? Really, do you try it? So you can use that for your well-architected framework. The interesting part is the eval, which I am alluding to what the question asked by Murali, is that it is very important that the systems that you put in should not go beyond the ethics. There is always a word called ethics. For example, the bias. So there were systems which was generated, especially in ATS tracker, which was very biased towards women, especially who were married. So the tracker simply rejected it, saying that the woman was married, and then they could go on to a maternity break, and it was biased. So the system was fine. There is n number of systems. So there was a company in France. So that's a digital marketing company. They did a similar one when they took a kind of a demographics one. The company was fined for 50 million euros, but the company's entire capital was 40 million. It went bankrupt, and the CEO was put in jail. So you can read that. It's a famous one happened. It's a company based out of Paris. So it's very important that we follow ethics. And other one is self-healing. So we put code, we build a lot of tools out using this AI. The bigger problem is that I think 2 weeks ago there was a CTO talk, and Rahul, he was also part of it. So there was one of the company, they spoke about reworks. So reworks is one of the biggest pain point all the enterprises face. So that could be handled here, how effectively you can put in a gating so that you don't break your pipelines or you don't break your products. I think the Snyder touched about the reputation. If you work for a bigger company, there is always a reputational risk, so that you put your company into stake. So these things could be handled. And lastly, so with a lot of these AI utilities, we are into bigger problem to make a communication between the utilities. Either you use an MCP or an agent to agent protocols. So remember, all these things are prone for vulnerabilities. So if you are not able to do a pen test properly, you will get into remote code execution problem, and then it could completely break the trust of the company, which I'm going to cover it here. So we can't give the full autonomy. I was talking to Ramesh in the morning. So when do you decide? It's like my wife. She says that I give you full permission to go out with your friends, but every 5 minutes she calls me and checks me. It's something like that. You can't allow, unless you are completely grounded, you are confident about your system, you can't allow autonomy for your agents to run it. So how the compliance team, the governance team says it's right, by your maturity model, you should be in a place to decide when to turn on the autonomy or when to block it. So these are pretty much, we get into fight with our teams. So always people think that the cybersecurity data governance team are blockers, but it's not really that. It's much beyond that. So just quickly, how many of you have watched this movie, Trust? It came in 2016, Nicolas Cage. How many of you watched this movie? Okay, so it talks about a famous citation that bad cops make brilliant criminals. I think this movie. So I'm going to talk about it. So when you don't have a proper standards, compliance, when your team is not real. So in this, Nicolas Cage and his friend won't deliver their duty correctly. So if these compliance teams are not working, there's a bigger problem which affects every enterprise is the shadow IT, because you use a lot of unauthorized tool and you get into trouble. I think you can read the Gartner's one, or NASCOM has put in a similar white paper. You can read it, which is by Ankit Bose. And last is interesting one, agent misalignment. Recently, I think, have any of you used an Anthropic model here? Just raise your hand. Okay. So do you trust the Anthropic model? Okay. So they say they're the most safest model, but to a sad part, 2 weeks ago they ran an end-to-end test. They gave access to the mailbox. You won't believe that agent turned into a chitty robot. That's a rogue agent. It took all the details and it started to blackmail the particular person. So that's the reason all the cyber security teams, compliance teams are very particular on certain standards. So lastly, right, so if you pair AI correctly to your cyber security norms, compliance norm, then you could love it like your Katan Chai and Palampuri. And I always say that I had a privilege last week in Bengaluru conference. I said the same thing. It is always a trusted ally. So I use my AI day in, day out, but I follow all the norms so that, like how in Jailer film, Laletan helped Rajinikanth, it could really help. So these are the 3 key principles you have to follow, and then bear in mind that's how cybersecurity teams, data governance teams act. It is very quintessential because whenever you build a system which touches 3 key areas, when you handle a sensitive data, it's an high risk. When you touch your fundamental rights, for example, you need to put it in an edutech company, it is always a problematic. Last is, right, when you have a very big brand and it is globally, for example, IP address in India is not a personally identifiable information, whereas your company that operates in Indonesia, IP address is considered to be an PI. So that's where the problem comes in. So it is always good. So few things I could advise is, right, so you try to come up with a framework called freedom within the framework. You have a light governance, but ensure that all the guardrails are in place. So I'm coming to the end. So I have hardly 2 minutes. So thank you for this opportunity. And then this is a quick, if someone is interested, you can scan it and then really think and answer it before coming to this session. Did you really think, if you remember, you saw Mammootty and then you saw Kalabhavan Mani and the last is Vinay, right? So before coming to the session, what was your understanding about AI, cybersecurity guys, data compliance guys? And then after this, with 10 minutes, whatever I tried to quickly rush through, what is your gut feeling, right, how they can help? So if possible, just put in your comments there. So I think we have 70 seconds. Happy to take any questions. Anyone wants to? You have 60 seconds. Okay. Thank you. Interest of time, I'm just closing it.